welcome home, I suppose, is the first thing to say. It's not a place because of the career you've had that you've had an awful lot of opportunities to spend a lot of time in, but any time you come back, you make the most of it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, certainly coming back to Mayo, I've had very little opportunity over certainly the last 10 or 15 years since I've been playing to get back. So I used to come over when I was a boy, and it seems such a long time since I've been able to come back over. And certainly from a relaxing perspective, it's wonderful for me to be back here. But I'm certainly, growing up, I wish I had an Irish accent. I used to want to pretend I had an Irish accent to certain people when I was a boy growing up, because I always considered myself Irish. And it's difficult for a lot of, certainly the English lads growing up that was alongside me, to say, look, I was Irish and I wanted to play for Ireland as a footballer, but I managed to live that dream, and it's certainly very, very proud for me and for my family to stand up here, certainly for my father, for my dad, who I'm certain will be proud of me here this afternoon or this evening to come and speak to you. So I've got very, very proud roots in this part of the world.
Well, I can identify with that slightly, because people often kind of remark and remind me that there's something slightly different about my accent as well. But I was similar to you in the sense that I count myself one of the lucky ones. As a family, we were able to come back, 13, 14, 15 years of age, back to Mayo, and it's been wonderful. For your family, I think it was very something similar. You'd have been growing up into the Gaelic football, you'd have been into the music and big Irish family gatherings. Today you said you don't remember anybody who wasn't Irish coming into the house.
Yeah, it was very much like that. I seen virtually all my very close friends growing up as well had very similar backgrounds to me. And we were just submerged in a small Irish community in Preston where I grew up. So again, it was something that was part of me growing up, and it was something that again, I take so much pride in. I feel Irish, and I've always felt as if I was Irish, albeit my accent doesn't tell you that, and certainly where I grew up. But again, yeah, very proud to be Irish, and I always will be.
Born in Preston, when did you realise that you were quite handy with the football? I mean, you joined the youth ranks first of all with Preston North End, and then how big a thrill to actually turn a professional with your hometown club?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe the same story with probably virtually every lad growing up. You start to play for your school team and maybe your Sunday league team, and you just get picked up by a club. And luckily for me, it was my hometown club in Preston, so I was picked up when I was about 10, I think. And then I just progressed, and I signed schoolboy forms at 14 and YTS, and as it was in those days, apprenticeships and things like that it is now, when I was 16. And then luckily for me, I went on to join the pro ranks at 18, and then I was playing in the Irish under-21s when I was 19. So it happened very, very quickly from me, from leaving school at 16 to suddenly being part of the senior setup at 20. And that 4-year period was just a phenomenal time for me, between signing for Preston and leaving Preston to go to West Brom. I had a wonderful time.
And how big a wrench to actually leave Preston in the first place? And then I think when you joined West Brom, it was the first time they had spent £1 million on a player. And I think further to that, when you joined Sunderland, you were the third most expensive signing they ever had. So with that comes a pressure, or is there a pressure? Did you ever feel that?
Yeah, you've done the research there, haven't you, a little bit, yeah. No, there's always expectation and pressure on any signing. I was getting asked yesterday about Jordan Henderson. He's a young boy who was at Sunderland, who's gone to Liverpool now. He's gone for big, big money. And you're playing for a club at Sunderland, which for me was at the top end of my career, playing for Sunderland and Everton. He's gone to Liverpool, which is, again, a step up from Sunderland. It's a huge step up for him. And he struggled. And sometimes as a young lad, you're not really given that chance to really, have that grounding and have that settling in period. You've got to go and hit the ground running. And it's difficult for young boys to suddenly be playing for a club like Liverpool, and expectations on the shoulders is huge. And, lads can adapt to it. Some lads can adapt to it, and all of a sudden they have a wonderful career ahead of them. But a lot of the time, it does take time. And certainly with foreign lads coming into the game now, and young Irish boys going over to live in England, it's huge moves for them. And I think now we're starting to see the benefits of Irish lads. Maybe when they're going over at 17, 18, they're only coming into the fore now at 21, 22. And I think it's difficult signing for a club when you're such a young boy with high expectations and a huge transfer fee over your shoulders.
Yeah, and from your point of view, before you knew it, you were playing in the green jersey. I think from what you've said already, that was going to be inevitable. But what I didn't realise until you said today, you had actually been approached and you turned down an offer to play with England.
Yeah, I was, yeah. That's probably a bit of an old story as well. Again, yeah, when I was at Preston, Sam Allardyce was the youth team manager at Preston, and when I was 17, I was picked to play for England under 18s, and yeah, I turned it down. So yeah, I suppose the rest is history on that one. But he did put a word in for me with Mick McCarthy when Mick McCarthy got the job, and I was in Mick McCarthy's first squad in the 21s, Irish in the 21s against Russia. So luckily for me, it worked out quite well.
Yeah. And as has already been referred to this evening as well, for anybody who's played for the Irish team, there's two subjects that are always going to be brought into the equation, and two names of players, and they are Roy Keane and Thierry Henry. So if you can bring us back to Saipan, if you will, from being inside, it must have been a pretty surreal experience.
Yeah, I'm getting a sweat on now all of a sudden, yeah. No,
wait till the next question comes.
No, this is the question that everyone always asks you, more so than the Thierry Henry incident. It's the Roy Keane incident in Saipan in 2002. And I think at the time, we honestly, we were in a bit of a bubble when we were away. Talking to John there, John was back home in Dublin at the time, and he was getting the brunt of everything, basically all the flack that was. We were in a bubble, we were away from it, so we weren't getting a sense of the huge story that was developing, not just in Ireland but worldwide, but here especially. Everyone that you speak to has got a story about how the story broke, where they were. It was a massive moment in Irish soccer history, and it was probably the biggest moment in Irish soccer history. It's the biggest, the most talked about point that we've ever had. And I think at the time we all would have loved to have Roy, our best player, one of the world's greats, with us at the time at the World Cup, but it just wasn't to be. And I think once he did leave the squad, people talk about us being galvanised, but we were very close anyway. We were such a close-knit group, and the team were really, really close. And there was a lot of friendships that were built in and around the World Cup that's still going strong today within a lot of the lads. So we didn't really need the incident to galvanise us, but I suppose in many respects it did. It brought us together in a way that we had to come together because, you know, I think probably everybody in this room that was watching the World Cup was expecting us to go there and produce the goods for them, and we had to do that.
Yeah. And to have gone so close in terms of the penalty shootout in 2002, I mean, the ambition and the aim for everybody was to get back there again, and what do we know? The next opportunity, you know, there's just such a massive controversy again, you know, this time on the field. And the one thing that sticks in my head about that night, Paris, the handball, Thierry Henry, is the sight of two players sat in the middle of the pitch at the end of the match. One Thierry Henry and the other Richard Dunn. And I mean, I was just absolutely sick, and that's coming from a supporter's point of view. From a player's point of view, what was it like?
I think we were all sick after the game, of course we were, and I think when the game had initially finished, I think the lads that were in and around it knew the incident had happened, but we didn't actually realise how clear-cut it was until you see the replays, whatever, half an hour or so after the game was finished. But we came out of that with a lot of credit as a nation. You know, I think within probably the FAI, the players themselves, the manager, we came out with a lot of credit because I think we were never going to get into the World Cup after that. There was a lot of talk and things like this going on, but we had to basically get on with it. We had to be strong, we had to be positive and move on and take the team forward, and that's what the team did in qualification for the Euros. And to bounce back from that the way that they did was tremendous. And it was just the incident at the time.
Did you think you could have got at any stage did the players believe you might have got a replay out of this?
No, I don't think we did. I think there's so many injustices in the game now, isn't there, that you see it constantly, but I think nothing on that scale. That was the problem. It was such a high-profile incident that cost, you know, the country. There was talk of it costing the economy so much and costing, you know, the FAI so much and whatever it would be. It did cost everybody a lot, but I think that to show the credit that everyone took from that, and you know, because we had to get on with it, everybody had to get on with it. Players were gutted, supporters were gutted that we weren't going to South Africa, and everybody pulled together again. And you've got to say that the way that the support was out in Poland was wonderful, but the team in qualifying for that tournament was tremendous because they showed a lot of spirit and a lot of character.
Now, I'm only guessing, and it is a pure guess, I don't know, but I'm presuming would the highlight of your club career have been the fact that you ended up at Everton. You had a couple of great seasons there. I think they qualified for the Champions League, you know, during your time. Now, I have written this down because, again, I was doing a bit of research, but I remember reading a quote from Bill Shankly years ago, so I had to look it up again. And he said, if Everton were playing down the bottom of my garden, I'd draw the curtains. You know, that was the Liverpool manager. So I'm just wondering, what was the rivalry like between Everton and Liverpool, either walking out, you know, on Derby Day in Goodison Park or Anfield?
It was a huge game to be involved in. I mean, I'd played in the Tyne Weir derby when I was at Sunderland. Sunderland Newcastle was a huge game up there, but the Merseyside derby took it to a whole new level, just globally, and I think probably because there were two huge teams. But Liverpool, especially, is renowned globally as being this superpower, really. And I was fortunate enough to win. I think I only won one Merseyside derby at Goodison, and when we did win that game, it just meant so much to everyone at the club. And I've played against Liverpool many a time since and before that with various clubs and didn't have too much success because they're such a wonderful side. But that Merseyside derby was an excellent one. But you're saying about probably being the highlight. I think looking back at my career now as a whole, I think my highlight of my career was playing for Preston as a young boy. It really was, because it was a time when the game was, for me, a lot purer, a lot better to be involved in. I really do believe that. I think the game had a huge influx of money, and that is given the players a lot from obviously a financial point of view, and from security from a financial point of view further on beyond the playing years. But football for me, when I was playing at Preston, was a lot purer, and it was great to be part of such a club with a group of players that, you don't want to say it, but really did look out for each other. And the bond that we had when I was at Preston as a young lad has lived with me to this day. And I think that's probably the highlight of my career, playing when I was 18, 19, 20 at Preston. And
I think you won a Division 3 title with them at the time. And I'm not sure, was that probably one of the major awards at the end of the career that you actually won? Yeah,
it's the only medal I've won in my career. So I've got to be fortunate enough that I've won one. There's so many players that go through their careers without having anything, and nothing will ever take away playing in the World Cup and playing so many times for Ireland. That goes without saying. That's the highlight of me career. But I think from a club career, playing for Preston is it means a lot to me, definitely. And winning that league championship medal was wonderful for me.
And you never gave us the impression that you wanted to ever retire from playing football. You know, we saw the last couple of years, you Huddersfield, you went down to Coventry. A back injury in the end really did it for you. Do you envy, the likes of Ryan Giggs when you see him approaching 40 and he's still playing in the Champions League away to Real Madrid? Would you love to be in his situation still?
Yeah, I'd love to be as fit as him probably, and love to be in the same sort of category as him. But I'm not, and that's what you've got to hold your hands up sometimes. I think probably with myself, I think I got to the age of about 28, 29, and you start to realise that your career's starting to wane a little bit and you can't do the things you maybe did 2 or 3 years before. And I managed to stay on in there and hang on in and, play a lot more. Probably played, I think, maybe my most consistent spell playing for Ireland when I was probably playing at the back. But I think on a whole, you get to a certain age and you know when time's up, and I certainly felt it last summer, but I decided to carry on playing for another year as I was going to go on with Coventry, and it just wasn't working out for me. So I knew in myself it was the best decision to finish playing, and I'm happy I've done that.
So finally, what happens next? The ambitions from here on. We've seen Mick McCarthy turn from player to manager. We've seen Steve Staunton do the same thing. Any possibility someday in the future you'd like to be managing the Irish team?
I think that it's the ultimate. It's the ultimate for me in management, without a doubt. If I was ever going to go into coaching and management, I'd love to manage the Irish side. But I mean, it's such a hard task to get to. It's such a hard position to actually undertake. I fully understand that and fully realise that. But hopefully, over the coming years, I've got to get a lot more experience along the way in coaching. But I'd love to be involved at some level. I'd love to. I'd consider that a total honour for me, and I would do, but you never know. It's such a long and rocky road in management and coaching that anything can happen very, very quickly.
Well, Kevin, thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't have asked for a nicer special guest to have with us this evening. It's not often you can say that you're in the company of legends, but this man holds the record for the most consecutive number of appearances for the Republic of Ireland. If you think about it, 66 consecutive times he never missed a game, and 110 times he has played for this country. What any of us would give just to play that once. 5 seconds at the end of a match, 5 minutes into injury time, please. But he's one of the nice guys, and we really appreciate that he's taken the time to join us this weekend, and we're proud to call him one of our own. Kevin, thanks very much.